Welcome to the Surviving to Thriving podcast, where we're dedicated to helping you break free from chronic inflammation and get your life back. I'm Dr. Rachel Yeager, naturopathic doctor and medical intuitive, and the founder of the Surviving to Thriving method of chronic illness recovery. Join me as we uncover strategies for overcoming health challenges and restoring your physical, mental, emotional, and soul health. Together, let's embark on a journey to thriving. So we all have heard of therapy. We have heard of growth mindset and changing your mindset, changing your habits. There's all these things that a lot of us already do or are familiar with that help improve our mental health and help with our emotional health as well. What's neglected or left out of this picture is usually the physical health side of things. And this is because we're set up with such a segmented health system. We see different practitioners for all the different parts of our body. We're often missing that big picture. We usually don't have someone to hold the big overview of how all the different systems and how all the different facets of our health, emotional, mental, social, physical, how all of these are playing in together. With mental health and with emotional health, what I want to focus on today is what are some non-therapy and non-mental health medication options for helping improve mental health. Because mental health is huge for our overall well-being. A lot of us would say that one of our main goals in life is to have happiness. And so our mental health is directly going to impact the quality of our life. It's also going to impact things like our relationships and our friendships and how fulfilled we feel at work and how well we show up in a job if that is important to us. So there's a lot of different factors that overlap with our mental health. Physically, our mental health impacts our immune system and our sleep. So we'll get into all of this, but keep listening if you're interested in what you can do outside the box to actually help improve your mental health, your emotional health, your brain health, and even just your well-being and happiness on a deeper soul level as well. So number one, let's dive into the physical factors behind mental health. These are not typically addressed with our conventional medicine model. And so you could be seeing the most amazing therapist in the world, and you could still have unaddressed contributing factors to your mental health. First of all, I'm a huge proponent of therapy. I think we all have subconscious patterns that we've picked up from our childhood, from society, from different influencing figures in our life, different structures like schools that we participated in. And in order to grow and truly know who we are so that we can ultimately feel free and happy, it's really important to understand what beliefs we've adopted that are not truly our own and what our true identity is without all of these extra things that have been put on us. So I think therapy is incredibly helpful. I honestly think we'd have a much better world if everyone was going to therapy. And I'm a huge fan of IFS parts work. It's called internal family systems, which it's not really about family. It's actually about the different parts of yourself and how you show up based on what past beliefs you've adopted and what experiences you've gone through in your life. I love using the Psychology Today search bar to help people find therapists that are located within their state or near them by zip code, and then filter for people who do IFS parts work. I find it's a lot more effective for people, especially people navigating health symptoms. It can be a lot more effective than just doing traditional talk therapy alone. There's a couple other really cool techniques that I'm a fan of, like brain spotting and emotional freedom technique, which is also called tapping. Brain spotting is kind of like the newer version of EMDR. So there's a bunch of really cool things out there. And on that Psychology Today website, you can actually filter by who you would want to work with based on what modalities they use and their location and what insurance they accept. So therapy is amazing. Outside of therapy, what are our other options? So the conventional system offers us mental health meds, which can be incredibly helpful and can give us a lot of wins. For some people, they're not the right fit at all. So When we think about what's going on behind mental health, I think we can break it up into a lot of different categories. But one of the big categories is physical factors. And we can break this down. So, physically, what's going on with our levels of neurotransmitters? These are our brain chemicals. You've probably heard of serotonin and dopamine and adrenaline. There's actually so many more than that. With testing, we can actually look and see what's going on in the creation of those neurotransmitters and then how the body is metabolizing and breaking them down and processing them. That can give us big insights into how these pathways are running. Sometimes I pair that with a genetic analysis of people's genetic pathways as well. And with that big picture of neurotransmitters, we can actually see you're feeling really low motivation and tired and having sleep troubles. Maybe your dopamine is super low. Or conversely, if you're feeling really low and not feeling like your normal self and not finding joy in things, is your serotonin low? If you're feeling really agitated and restless in your body, is your dopamine high? We have other neurotransmitters like GABA that are so foundational, and GABA is our grounding, peaceful, calming, centering hormone. We need this during the day to not have anxiety and to be able to feel like our best grounded selves. At night, we need enough GABA to fall asleep and stay asleep. Melatonin gets talked about a lot for sleep. This is a great sleep hormone, but GABA is our brain's hormone that's running all the time, and it boosts a lot at night, and it's honestly just as important as melatonin, if not more, for sleep. There's a bunch of other neurotransmitters in the pathway, and there's also inflammatory neurotransmitters. So if we're having brain inflammation, we can actually get high inflammatory neurotransmitter pathways that are being activated. So instead of getting our nice, happy serotonin, it could all be shuttling down this inflammatory anxiety, doom, unease, really uncomfortable pathway. A lot of people who have anxiety, even if it's just with social things, we test. There has not yet been a single instance of someone who has symptoms that we have decided are probably neurotransmitter related who's gotten a normal neurotransmitter test back. There is usually something that we can find. Some of the other things that I like to look at are cortisol, which is our stress energy hormone. Cortisol is not just about stress, it's not just about energy. It's actually a master regulator in our body, and it does impact and influence a lot of our brain-body signaling. A lot of our messages for how our body functions and what's going on in our brain are coming from signals and hormones in the brain. So inflammation in the body can affect this, but also if your brain is having imbalanced cortisol, or if your brain does not have enough nutrients to be making precursors to some of its hormones, it doesn't have the building blocks to even make them, we're going to feel the effects downstream. We're going to have brain and mental health effects, and we're also going to have physical effects. So one really good example of this is master precursor sex hormones. So a lot of people are checking their downstream sex hormones. I guess if you're lucky, actually most people are not, but if you are going to be checking them, then often you're doing this with a holistic practitioner and you're looking at really timed, strategically drawn estrogen and progesterone and testosterone and things like that. Upstream, we have some precursors of those hormones. And if those precursors are low, our body can't make those sex hormones. And also, we end up with anxiety and we end up with poor sleep and often low energy, brain fog, and fatigue. So those are really important to check. I check those in everyone that I work with who fits this profile of something going on with brain-body signaling. We also have our brain's signals down to ovaries, our FSH and LH. We have our brain signaling down to the thyroid, our TSH. We have a lot of other brain signaling hormones that can actually influence how we feel and what the activity is in our brain. Nutrients play a role in not just making some of the precursors for these hormones and these other things, but also directly impacting our cognition. If we're really low in folate or B12, or if we're taking the wrong form of these and we're not taking the good absorbable form, then we can actually have brain fog and irritability and just in general, poor mood, and just not feeling like ourselves. So there's a lot of physical factors to look into. Some other physical factors I find can influence are how well your detox pathways are working, how well you're sleeping, what you're eating, how much you're moving or exercising, what are any side effects from medications that you're taking, and what are your inflammation or histamine levels. Those can all really impact things as well. So looking at the big picture, in my view, means looking at the physical causes behind mental health and how your brain is working, instead of just putting all the burden in a way on yourself to rewire things, whether you're doing therapy or whether you're doing something like brain rewiring, which is also called nervous system regulation. Nervous system regulation is incredible. We live in a highly stressful society where our brain is getting so much more stimuli than it was originally intended to handle. We have not evolved overnight. Our brain, truthfully, I don't know if it's even healthy to evolve to the amount of stimuli that we're intaking. And we're also, as women, showing up to work in a workforce that, when it was created, was designed for men, and it is designed on you show up the same way every day, 24-hour circadian rhythm, which matches men's hormone health very well. This does not match up with women's 28-day cycles, and it doesn't usually flow as well when we're experiencing transitions like perimenopause or menopause. So we have a lot of extra stressors and a lot of extra factors that end up influencing our health. Because of that, I think it's more important than ever to do active, intentional nervous system regulation. What does this mean? So if we break it down into the most general view, we have 3 states that our subconscious brain can live in. And our subconscious brain is determining our heart rate and our blood pressure, and it's keeping our organs working and modulating things that we're not even consciously aware of. It's doing a lot of involuntary work behind the scenes. One of the things that's also modulating is our immune system and our hormone production and what our body is doing with the food we eat, how we're digesting, our metabolism. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes that's controlled by our subconscious, automatic, involuntary part of our brain that we don't have to think about. We don't have to think about taking our next breath. Our body does that even when we're sleeping. That's all our subconscious autonomic nervous system. So nervous system regulation means looking at the 3 states. We can be in our rest and heal and digest state. We can be in our fight or flight, go, problem solve state. Or we can be in our shut down, overwhelm, numb, collapse state, which is also called freeze, and it can be fawn as well. So with that basic overview of those 3 general states we can be in, it's important to know that we are only having full immune function and digestion and absorption of our nutrients and creating our hormones, et cetera, when we're in our rest and heal state. This doesn't mean that we don't want to ever be in fight or flight, because we need to be in fight or flight if we're truly being chased by something scary or running away from a bear in the woods or whatever it is. But we have a lot of modern chronic stresses. We didn't used to have things like looming work deadlines. We had a line that either we escaped from or we didn't. So there wasn't this constant looming, all these things to keep track of, and these more chronic ongoing stressors, and even different ways that we have to show up, which can be really stressful on our bodies. And so because of that, I think we're spending a lot more time in fight or flight. Actually, we know we are spending a lot more time in fight or flight. And I don't think social media helps. I don't think that a lot of the things that we do helps. I don't think watching really fun shows or listening to murder podcasts, like a lot of these things, if they're too stimulating or they have different things happening that we wouldn't want to happen to us in real life, our brains are really powerful. This is a whole nother topic, but our brain can't tell the difference between what we are intaking via TV or visualization or imagination or listening versus what's actually happening. So our brain's going to respond as though we were going through those things, even if we don't feel stressed immediately after watching these kind of things. So I think a lot of our modern habits don't lend themselves toward regulation. But even someone who is actively trying to get their sleep and following a circadian rhythm and getting light exposure and avoiding stimulating things, even the average person usually benefits from doing some purposeful work to switch their brain out of a fight or flight or shutdown state into a default rest and heal state where you live in that state unless you are pushed temporarily into one of the other states. So, nervous system regulation is huge because if we're not regulated, we are going to be having these survival responses anytime a small or big stressor comes up. And then these survival responses are impacting our mental health, they're impacting our hormone production, they're impacting what neurotransmitters our brain is making, they impact our sleep, they impact whether we absorb our nutrients, and the list goes on. So, nervous system regulation is definitely a component that's really helpful for a lot of people. And there's a lot of great resources for this. I like to guide people in basically how to embrace nervous system regulation in a way that really ties into getting to know yourself better and understanding what states you're in and what your values are so that you can really be aware of what's going on. There's a lot of other great, really physical focused nervous system regulation techniques. I like to help bridge people. I like to really distill down what's helpful to know and then what exercises are helpful to actually do that are really easy and simple. And then what different topics to consider and ways to reframe and look at certain things and different things to examine and understand about yourself. So, really just doing that distilled look at what is going to get you to that point where you have this great awareness and you're starting to be able to regulate your nervous system on your own and tying it into identity work, which we'll talk about here in a second. And so I lead people through that in my 12-week healing container that I walk people through. That's always, as long as that's something that would be helpful for someone, then that's part of what we do because the brain is such a huge part of our overall physical health and healing. So the last part here is soul health, which I tie in and wrap in with identity work. If we're not happy, if we're in a job where we're not able to use our talents and our gifts that we were born with, and we're not having positive relationships, and we're not able to feel creative or feel like we're making anything that matters and counts, then it's going to be natural for us to feel depressed and for us to not feel happy because we are in a circumstance that is directly impacting us. So I think that the third part here is you can't out medicate or out therapy your way around not having positive, healthy life factors in place. So if there's a relationship that is impacting you on a deep level, or you're in an abusive relationship, or if you're in a really hard circumstance, there is mindset work, which is always helpful. And on some level, what I have found is that if your soul doesn't feel like you're able to be your true self, and there's something that's really keeping you from being your true self, then it's going to be really hard for you to have positive mental health and positive emotional health. Our soul health is important. We're very intelligent, but also very feeling humans. We have a lot of emotions, and that's what sets us apart is how we feel and how we think. It's what sets us apart from other mammals. And if we're not in an environment that's conducive for us to be feeling and thinking things that are healthy, then that's going to really impact us. So whenever someone is having a relationship or a job or really stressful circumstances, it's really hard to heal in those circumstances. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't start trying, because starting to shift your mindset and helping fix the neurotransmitter imbalances and helping correct your nutrients, balance your sex hormones, and balance your stress, energy, cortisol, all of that helps get you to the mindset where you're okay to make a shift and you're ready to shift that job. You're ready to change your friendship boundaries. You're ready to make these changes. But realistically, probably not everything is going to shift to 100% until some of the soul level happiness and fulfillment and joy factors are shifted. So those are the things I like to walk people through because they're all interconnected. We're not a car. We're not just an automobile that we can have a car mechanic go and fix stuff. It would be like having multiple different images of a car overlaid on each other somehow in a 3D way, because we have all these different parts that are connecting. And not only are they overlapping and in a way sharing space, but they're also interplaying and influencing each other. And our emotions, for example, think of if you ever felt really anxious having to give a speech or something, your heart starts racing and maybe your breathing gets a little bit more shallow and you might get a little bit flushed and to get tunnel vision. So our emotions absolutely influence our physical health. And then if you've ever not felt well and had the flu and not wanted to go socialize and just felt really irritable and not like yourself, then you know that your physical health also influences how you feel mentally. And then our social health, our relationships, our soul health, and how fulfilled and grounded we feel, and whether we feel like we are a part of something bigger or we feel connected to other people, all of that can really influence how we feel. So if you're having brain fog, fatigue, low motivation, or headaches and migraines, or menstrual issues, or you think you might be going through perimenopause, or you're having a hard postpartum transition or menopause transition, if you're having any forgetfulness and your mind is just not feeling like how you normally feel, if there's anything that's making you not feel like your typical self and you feel off, sometimes people feel like their brain is broken or their body is broken. That's a really good cue to look at your holistic picture of what's actually going on behind the scenes versus just doing symptom relief. If this is something you're interested in exploring, I do offer free discovery calls. And just remember that there's so many different parts to your health. If we zero in on just one, we're missing so much of your picture. So remember that there's nervous system regulation or brain rewiring. There's tools we can bring in like therapy. There's the physical aspects behind your mental health and your actual physical brain health that are extremely important. And then there's the emotional soul level wellness and how fulfilled you feel and how much love you have in your life. Things like that really impact how you feel as well. The good news is these are all areas we have a lot of control over. Our health is, we are humans, we're part of nature. We are not always going to have 100% control over our health. A lot of these areas that fall under the brain health and brain signaling category, we actually have a ton of control over. And even if it's something that you've been diagnosed with, like ADHD, that's actually typically one of 3 neurotransmitters being low. A lot of times we can actually boost those neurotransmitters and help rebalance things. So just know that you have options. Your body is so capable of recalibrating and coming to center. And you are amazing. And I hope that everyone listening has a wonderful day. And I hope that you can just feel a sense of awe for how incredible and interconnected and complex in a really special way your body is. So harnessing that instead of having it feel like it's working against you, being able to use that as a healing tool, as an ally, is where we start to feel empowered and we're able to love ourselves and our bodies so much more. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Surviving to Thriving podcast. I hope you found inspiration and valuable insights to support your journey towards better health and happiness. Remember, each health journey is unique. This podcast is not medical advice, and it's essential to consult with your healthcare provider before making any changes. If you'd like to schedule a complimentary consultation with me, I would love to talk with you. Please go to drrachelyeager.com/schedule.